I found my issue. Oh, fuck. Oh, if it's not one thing, it's another, huh? Well. Oh, well. Motherfucker. At least we're getting somewhere on the floats. Fuck! 7 days ago it was snowing. Today it looked great, 55 and sunny, and I was like, you know what? I spent all last week buttoning up my last issue, and it was fixed last week. It's not fixed today. Let me show you what it is. This carburetor float here, this one, right side, will not stop leaking. Now, I know what you're thinking. Matt, it's carburetor float. Set the float height right, and it won't leak all over the fucking place. And I agree with you. This sounds really stupid. It hasn't been so far. I've done many floats in my life, and I've never had this issue before. No matter what I do, I can't get it set right. This is now on the third carburetor rebuild set, and I actually bought all new floats, float valve, pins, everything to go through it this time. And what I did, I ran it for about 20 minutes just idling in the garage during the snow last week, and everything was fine. And now when I give this a shot, let's give it gas, bring it all the way to reserve, and there it comes. All right, so apparently the float is sticking open, but not always. And I even bench tested this before I buttoned everything back up, and it wasn't doing this. So something with the vibration and the way that it ends up sitting is getting this float to stick. What sucks about the CL versus a CB and running the stock air boxes is that the exhaust has to come off to even get into these things. So it's not a quick job. It just isn't. So I don't want to do this again. I'm actually not even sure what I'm going to be looking for this time. I think what I'm going to do is just completely set it. I'm going to set the float too high so it closes much quicker. Just check to see what's happening inside of it, and I don't know, we'll see if I can get it. But carb fatigue is becoming very real, and I mean I've ridden this thing like 25 miles and it doesn't show up, and then sometimes it just shows up. So I don't know, I'll be spending another Friday night doing this. At least I know what I'm doing this time in the taking it apart part, not the actual fixing of the carburetor part. Let's see what we can do. All right, so we'll talk about what has to happen to get to the carburetors of your CL350. Number one, we're gonna drain the tank. We will undo one of the lines, get most of it out, set it to reserve, bring most of it into there, undo the lines, take that off. There is a tricky part. These tanks, this sucks. I've gotten better at doing this. It's actually connected on the bottom by an additional line to make sure that fuel gets to both sides of it. And you gotta be quick or you end up getting gas all over the place. So tank is gonna be draining. While I'm doing that, loosen up the exhaust collars on here. The exhaust, you don't have to put it onto the ground, but the exhaust has basically gotta come off of the back. Reason it's gotta come off, this is gonna get undone so that I can detach this, hang it down far enough. Then you gotta pray that you don't, one, break your fingers, two, break the little tabs on these plastic not fairing pieces, but the plastic airbox covers. So these will pop out, and then we're getting pretty close once we're there. Undo, why am I blanking on what the name of those things are? Whatever the hoop things are that hold the intakes and the intake boots, sorry, the airbox and the intake boots. We will undo those. And once we get there, we could pretty much, tank will be off. Then we could pull the throttle cable adjusters off, get those out with a pick, and then the carburetors will be floating by themselves, sitting in here, pop them off, and then we'll be able to get into the carbs. So let's see if we can do that. All right, the exhaust is loosened. Unfortunately, the draining part goes very slow. So we'll be waiting for a while. Take the air boxes off, or air filters off, then the tank. Here Gearbox is off. I bet if you had tiny, tiny little hands, you could actually undo the throttle cables. Oh, it's making some noise. I bet you could undo it. I bet there's a way you can do this without having to take the tank off. That being said, I'm not going to figure that out today. So, we're going to take the tank off. Okay, now, what are the odds I can get this off without spilling a ton of gas? I don't know. I've learned to wear safety glasses during this part because this hose ends up flipping gas somewhere, and it's hit my face before. Not quite my eye. This hose on the bottom, what I'm going to do, I'm going to push it off with this screwdriver. I don't like pulling on the end of the hoses. I think it's easier to rip them that way. So I'm going to pull that off. Petcock is in the closed position. All of the other fuel lines are disconnected. And what I do, once this comes off, immediately I tip the tank up so that it doesn't leak out of the bottom. The only thing's holding the tank on, it's in some rubber rests up top, and then this rubber piece right here. So it's actually not, connected. It's just, it's not screwed on. This piece, if you've got the original, is probably broken by now. Every time you pull this off, it feels like it's gonna just fucking rip. But let's go ahead and get that off. Please don't rip. Okay. There, and it rests there. Looks even worse when it's going on. So, now, let's see if I can get you. I gotta do it from this side. I want to push this hose. Okay, now I can do the rest of my fingers. There we go. Oh shit. Alright. What are you caught on? What are you caught on? There it is. This is that hose I was talking about that holds them together. I'll just put that back on. Now, something I've tried is actually splitting a T into this. I just couldn't get it to drain right, so I don't know. I didn't get it too soaked on that one. I've done it in the past where, actually, let me go ahead and close that. I've done it in the past where I've forgotten. I've only drained it to the end of the on position instead of reserve. That puts a lot of gas onto the ground. Anyway, there we go. We can undo the throttle cables and get the carbs off. This is trouble carb right here. I just drained it. Look how little came out of there. Now that's weird. So the overflow, basically there's a stem up there. Once it gets to a certain height, it'll start dumping out. And as you saw earlier, it just dumped out immediately. So this actually surprised me a bit. I assumed that the bowl would actually be full. This doesn't mean anything, but we're gonna pull the bowl off the bottom. Nothing wrong with the top. I'm gonna pull the bowl off the bottom. We're gonna inspect the float valve, and the valve seat, and see what's going on there. I actually pulled the other carburetor off, not because I needed to, because this one has been perfectly fine. It's set up the exact same as this one, but I'm gonna double check, triple check, quintuple check where exactly the float height is set on this one, and probably set this one based off of what I see on here. But we'll get into both of them. So I've been looking at the two carbs and I still can't quite figure out why this one is leaking and this one isn't. This one's been great the entire time. Now there's all new hardware in both of them. Actually replaced the float just in case there was a hole in the other one, even though I wasn't submerged, it didn't see anything, just felt like replacing it anyway. So this is the good one. I'm not 100% certain if I'm going to be showing this on the video because it's on my head, but you got your float here and you've got the float needle right there, and it sits in the float seat, and as the float moves up and down, that needle will open and close to the amount of fuel that can come in. My issue is that that needle apparently is sticking open, or the float's not coming up. So a couple things that could be going wrong. So this is a good one, is that this pin could be getting stuck, and then all of a sudden the floats don't move. I don't think that's the issue. This float moves just fine. Or it could be adjusted too far out of spec in that the level of the fuel needs to be too high before it seats, and that's kind of what I'm going to be checking. But if I'm watching the needle when it's straight up and down, the needle action is fine. So let's measure the good one. The way you measure this is, all right, so the needle comes down, you just want it resting. Those needles have a little bit of spring tension in them, so you don't want to compress it all the way. That's the spring compression right there. You want to take the reading with the non-compressed spring, and you take it from the surface, the mating surface for the bowl and the carburetor, and bring it down. It's right there, 25.68. So spec or stock is 26. If I do this a bunch of times, you'll see it change a little bit, but right, 25.65. All right, this is the one that works fine. I'm good with that number. Where's this one at? Which looks to be operating the exact same way, but apparently is not. $25.84 and not 26.14. That didn't feel right. I'm trying to guess where the camera is. Sorry about that. 25.68. I mean, they should be just about the same. Now, how you adjust the float height is you could pull this pin out. So let's just go ahead and do that. Pull the pin out, and the pin isn't held in by anything outside of once you put the bowl over it, the pin's got nowhere to go. So that comes out. The float comes out. There's your float. And these are taped because if I'm pulling the needle jet out, or not the needle jet, sorry, the float seat out, you don't want to grab it with anything hard. This is the needle. This is a new guy. And the spring here, everything's working fine about it. That should be all good to go. And it looks like it's working fine inside of it. That is the seat. Pull that screw out, and this little seat holder comes out. Pull it off. The way you adjust this is it has this little tang on it right here. What you do is, if you want to raise it or lower it, set it down, push it with, and it doesn't take much, you just push it a little bit. So what I actually want to do, I want to raise the height so that it closes quicker on this one. This one's been working fine, so I'm going to leave it. Just want to see if I can get it to seat. So I'll mess around with that. I want to get it to about, and when we're at like 25.6, I want to get it to about 26 3/4. Now the spec said 26 for this one, but I want to go, obviously I want to go more conservative, have it lower level in there. Hopefully we don't hit the overflow. The overflow works by, this is the bolt, this sits over the top like that, and once it hits a certain height, there's a tiny little hole there. Fuel goes into the hole, comes out and fucking ruins your day under your engine. Or if you have the hoses, then it ruins the day of the floor. Either way, I don't know, fucking take another fucking swing at it. What I was thinking is that once I set the float heights, instead of putting the whole thing back on the bike, I'll put the carb in this vise here, set up this auxiliary fuel tank, set it here, and put fuel to it. Now I've tried this with a siphon, or not a siphon, a funnel before, and it worked fine, but maybe there wasn't enough fuel pressure or fluid pressure on it. So figure if I fill this thing up to lay here, put this here, that should be pretty indicative of what it would be like on the bike. I can't really simulate the vibrations, but this is as good as I can do without buttoning the whole fucker up. I wish you could just put a clear bowl on it and see where it was actually sitting. That'd be pretty cool. Or if the drain screw on here had a way that you could hook up a clear line. Basically, if you had a clear line that you could put on here, you would put it right there. The clear line would come out here. You just hold it up and you could see exactly where the fuel level is. I don't have that option, so we'll try We'll try setting to 26.75 and I don't know, maybe get somewhere. All right, so I just started surgery here. Not really surgery. Anyway, what I'm doing is sending fuel from this auxiliary tank with Fast and Furious 7 behind me. And what I want to do, all right, so the fuel's made it there. What I want to do is see if anything comes out of this overflow. If not, that means that the bowl is filling up. It'll fill up to some height. I switched the float height to 27 millimeters. It was at like 25.6, 25.7 before. So what I did is I took a pretty big swing and set it to 27. Now, if it seats, that's good. I don't want to see anything come out. But I did this last time, and nothing came out. However, if I go too aggressive, there will be very little fuel in the bowl. So when it's at higher RPMs and it's sucking a lot of fuel, there may not be enough in it to keep up those RPMs. But my biggest thing right now is I got to figure out how to keep this thing from leaking. Because right now, I'm stuck. I can't go anywhere until this starts seating. So everything looked all right, the action and everything on it. So I'll leave this for a while, then I'll start shaking it around, and we'll see if anything happens. Well, I was holding up about 20 minutes later, and I'm not sure what else to try. I mean, I could shake this thing, maybe pretend like I have a parallel twin engine, and if that seat's gonna stick somewhere, maybe it'll stick now. I can't get it to leak, so this doesn't tell me anything, but I mean, this has got to be more, I mean, that's a higher height than the fuel tank would be delivering it, so this should be an adequate test on whether or not that amount of pressure would push the needle down too far to hold fuel. So I know that this needle can seat. Will it seat as soon as I put it on this thing? And if it does hold when I put it on this thing, is it going to hold the week after? Who fucking knows? Anyway, what time is it? 9:50? Maybe, let's see if I can go for a speed run. Let's see if I can get this thing done. All right, got the fuel tank on. I haven't buttoned up the exhaust yet because I wanted to check to see. All right, we got fuel flowing. Both filters. That's why I like having the clear filters. I wanted clear line. I couldn't get it to quite work right, but the filters work. At least I can tell if fuel's flowing. So I'll tap those bad boys around for a little while. I want to fill the bowls up, and basically this is the one I want to see if it's going to overflow. And as you saw in that previous video, it eventually overflowed. It usually takes about a minute from where it was previously set. If I went through and did the whole exhaust buttoning up and then just saw it dumped right away, well, then I wasted that time. So we'll see if I can. Not getting anything leaking yet. This is the one I'm most worried about. I don't know, we'll see. Hopefully it only goes up to about there, and then it stays. And then I'll roll it out into the garage after I button up the exhaust. It's probably too late to actually start it. Maybe I'll kick it over once or twice, see if we can get some stuff flowing. But outside of that, tomorrow will be the day. If it doesn't leak, then I'll go on for a short jaunt around the neighborhood, come back, park it, see if it spills. If not, then, I don't know. Then it's better. But it's going to have to prove it to me over a couple times, because it's worked 1 week and then all of a sudden it starts sticking again. The other thing I could have done is made it way too lean now. Lean as in I dropped the fuel level too low. But it's a lot of work to move something 1.2 millimeters, but that's what we're trying. Right, so I maneuvered it around, slapped it around a little. Still nothing's leaking, which is great. Still got it set to reserve. Yep, no leaks or anything. It's too late to actually leave it, run it for a while, but I still want to know. So I'm kicking it over in the garage, because why not? Let's see, little choker. I'll leave it for about 5 minutes now, see if anything comes out. I'm not going to leave it overnight, because if I do, it does start leaking, well, then I've got a whole garage full of gas. So I'll finish this one up tomorrow and we'll see if we get any further. Alrighty, it is the next day and it's beautiful, sunny, about 51 degrees, and we're gonna give this thing a shot. So sat overnight and I actually just ran it. Just learned something about the GoPro, and sometimes if you hit the quick capture button, it doesn't record sound, so I'm doing this one again. Anyway, I got the fuel set to reserve, and there's been no leaks, and it's idled for 10 minutes. It's warm now because I just went for a ride for about 10 minutes. We're gonna kick it up. I probably got the idle set a little low. It's pretty low on the idle, but it's a lot better right now. It does have an issue, and that is I set the float a little too aggressive, but we'll get to that. Let's just take another little ride here. It does sound nice, that's for sure. Okay. Okay, couple issues here. Well, actually, let's put it on the center stand so the gas can get to it. See if it overflows. I don't think we're going to see any overflow. Much better. Much better. I mean, it's rideable. We stall out at 6,000 RPMs now. And it's probably because it's not getting enough fuel. That 27.1 was too big of a shot. Probably got to try 26.5, see if that fixes it, maybe 26.4. But much better. I don't expect this to start dumping fuel all over the place anymore. Something happened when I was riding. All of a sudden the turn signals just stopped working. There's a rattle coming up. I don't know where the rattle's coming from. I don't know if it's the gauge cluster or what. Did I lose brake lights or anything? Brake lights are still there. All right, all right, so I still got my brake lights. Yeah, I just lost my fucking turn signals. Oh, if it's not one thing, it's another, isn't it? Brights work. Okay, brights and regulars off. That's all good. Neutral light, so it's just my turn signals. I found my issue. Oh, fuck. Oh, if it's not one thing, it's another, huh? Well. Oh, well. Motherfucker. At least we're getting somewhere on the floats. Fuck!